I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, one of our regular guests. I have a lot of respect for him because in his experience portfolio, he's got 15 years as an international derivatives broker. He handles large buys, gold contracts, and gold, physical gold for people. He does tailored analytical work for high-dollar clients. I'm talking about Rob Kirby of Kirby Analytics. Rob Kirby, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.
Pleasure to be with you, Greg.
Well, there's wars and rumors of wars in the Bible, and boy, I don't want to get all theological here, but that is exactly what's going down. And two big stories that have, I think, daisy chain effects that could happen. Whether you believe the stories out of Ukraine about who shot down what, or who's to blame, or who did it, or who didn't, the pain or the tensions have ratcheted way up in that part of the world. Also, in the Middle East, there's ISIS, there's Israel, Hamas, the little war they have going on. Because you were an international derivatives broker, could these conflicts that are obviously getting way ratcheted up, could they cause a knock-on effect, a daisy chain effect in the financial system, in the derivative market, which is hundreds of trillions of dollars?
I don't see any reason why it couldn't, Greg. But when you speak of the derivatives complex and you look at the size and the concentration of derivatives held in very, very few hands, like speaking of American institutions, you've got 5 institutions in America that hold 98.8 or something percent of all derivatives held by U.S. Banking companies. And those 5 institutions are J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley. Now, they all have derivatives books that range anywhere from 46 trillion notional up to J.P. Morgan, who's the biggest, at 72 trillion in notional. And the lion's share of these derivatives trades have on the other side of them the U.S. Treasury, specifically the Exchange Stabilization Fund in the U.S. Treasury. And when the Exchange Stabilization Fund wants to transact in the market, they phone their prime broker, who's the New York Federal Reserve Trading Desk. So the Fed acts as the broker for the Treasury. And while some people might disagree with this, I would contend that U.S. monetary policy is decided basically in back rooms of the U.S. Treasury and implemented through the Fed. The Fed acts as a whodunit organization with a bunch of Inspector Clouseaus running around, namely the presidents of the regional Fed banks. You get one of them out there saying that rates should go up and people should sell bonds. You get another one of them out there saying that expressing the dovish side of the interest rate theorem. And what this does is it fools people into thinking that there's a real debate and there's real give and take when it comes to U.S. monetary policy. I would contend that there's none of that at all. U.S. rates are arbitrarily set by the Treasurer of the United States. He may be taking some guidance or acting in collusion with the chairman of the Federal Reserve, but rates, the real thrust in how rates are set at zero. It's done through the Exchange Stabilization Fund, who executes interest rate derivatives trades with the commercial banks, with the Fed as the broker, and these interest rate derivatives trades mean that the U.S. Treasury can make banks captive buyers of any amount of U.S. government debt they wish to issue, literally any amount.
And so Bullard out last week saying, with the inflation risk and, you should hold stocks and you should sell bonds. You're saying that's just disinformation.
It's a mirage. It's a ruse. This is done to make people think that there really is a debate about rates. The reality of rates, Greg, is that they're at zero and they're not going up.
Well, then if the financial markets are orchestrated, boy, it sure does look like We've got all this, chaos, in Ukraine, and we have chaos in Israel with Hamas in Israel, and chaos in Iraq, and chaos in Syria. And is that just by coincidence? I mean, it's just we're unlucky?
No, the chaos is by plan, Greg, because the architects of the chaos are the globalists, and the globalists have a little saying: out of chaos will come order. So what they do is they whip up and incite animosity and fears, and they play groups off of one another. And these globalists, if I have to mention who they are, globalist entities and globalist personalities include the likes of Maurice Strong, Henry Kissinger, George Soros, who are all acolytes of the Rockefellers. And everybody should remember that it was the Rockefellers who basically fathered the United Nations. The United Nations is an extremely globalist organization, and the goal of the globalists ultimately is to have one world currency, one world religion, one world currency, and one world government. And these guys will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. The organization of the Euro countries under an umbrella, and the organization of the North American Free Trade Agreement is a quasi umbrella, and the whole idea of globalism is to first round the countries of the world into regional blocks, and then merge the blocks into one super country, with governance by these technocrats. These people who have contempt for humanity. They've stated their contempt for humanity in much of their writings over the last 30 or 40 years. This material is in the public domain. People can go and read about it. And the goal of the globalists ultimately is in achieving their one world government, they want to deindustrialize the West. And they want to reduce the world population by something like a factor of 80 or 90%. The picture of the globalists, their model for the world is modeled along the lines of Maoist China, and Maoist China isn't exactly my idea of a great place to live and a great legacy for my kids and grandkids to come. So
they're the ones that are blocking it. Looks like. I mean, China, Russia have teamed up. They're not wanting to come to the party. Is that right?
They don't like the high-handedness of the globalists. They don't like. I don't think they share the globalist contempt for humanity. And isn't it strange? Because it's almost the world sort of turned upside down. Because I think during the Cold War I was taught, and basically it was inbred in me, that the enemies of free humanity were behind the Iron Curtain, and were the communists. Now it seems we've stood that on its head, and the people with the contempt for humanity seem to be the globalists. And these globalists, Greg, have taken control of not only your country, they've got control of my country, Canada. They've got control of most of Western Europe and the United Kingdom, and these people are dangerous, and these are the people that are seemingly taking the world to the brink. These are the people that fomented the uprising in the Ukraine. I mean, George Soros has been beating his chest for the last number of months in public, saying how he was instrumental in causing the rebellion in the Ukraine. The funding that went into the rebel causes to unseat a duly elected leader in the Ukraine, it was all financed by the West. And anyone who's paying attention realizes that it's been the Anglo-American complex that has been trying to push a conflagration between the West and Russia. So these are the forces that are at work.
If and you're saying if the monetary system is at control, well, then all the other stuff's controlled too. And speaking of money, we give money to Hamas. They're firing rockets into Israel. We give money to Israel. They've invaded Gaza. We give money to ISIS. We give money to the rebels, which ISIS came from the rebels from Syria. We're still giving money. We're giving money to to Iraq, who is Shia. So we have Shia and Sunni and Israeli and Hamas and the Russians and the pro-separatists and the Ukrainians, and now we have our southern border. You're saying that is all the spin doctoring, the all by design. This is all the chaos that they're fermenting, especially on the southern border of the United States, which has become a huge issue. People are afraid of this in quote-unquote invasion. It's not a humanitarian issue. It is something that was, border guards say that they think it's orchestrated. A lot of people say it is the president's fault at the very least because of his policies on not enforcing immigration laws, and he could stop it tomorrow if he'd send, troops down to the border, call up the Department of Defense and say, get down there and stop these people from coming over.
Yeah, well, the U.S. Customs Service on the southern flank of the United States is actually aiding and abetting the importation of undocumented, illegal aliens into the United States. They're literally going into Mexico and rounding these people up, and they're shipping them direct into the United States, basically giving them bus vouchers to go anywhere they want in the United States. No documentation. This makes the whole war on terror out for what it really is, which is a ruse, and it's basically it's indoctrinating people. I call it prisoner training, and it's indoctrinating people to accept an increasingly overburdening police state, which is what the United States has become. And there's the current leader in the United States is he's linked very closely with groups with communist, very very strong communist roots.
That is a fact.
He's an aider and an abettor of the globalist cause. He has contempt for humanity, and don't be fooled by his soft speaking, because this man is a globalist, a lackey for the globalists through and through. And these people have contempt for all of humanity, and you know what? And they'll stop at nothing to achieve their goals, which is the deindustrialization of the West. And some of these globalists that I mentioned a little bit earlier. One in particular, Maurice Strong. I just want to nest on this name for a few minutes, if I may, Greg. Maurice Strong is a former chairman of Ontario Hydro back in the 1990s. He was installed as the chairman of Ontario Hydro by a socialist premier we had at the time. His name was Bob Rae. And this Maurice Strong character put Ontario Hydro on a trajectory where they were shuttering all of their cheap hydro power, which was produced by coal-fired plants, and replacing all that electricity at the margin with windmill farms. And the difference in cost of the power generation, coal electricity used to be produced in Ontario at around 6 cents a unit. And these new subsidized windmill farms produce electricity at the margin at 70 cents a unit. And isn't it interesting that over the implementation period of this cheap power for expensive power in Ontario, we've lost much of our industrial bases in that the auto industry has moved away from Ontario. And we have premiers, in the last 10 years in Ontario talking about how they're going to get our jobs back. Well, our jobs are never going to come back. No heavy industry is ever going to locate in Ontario again, because when you've got power at the margin at 70 cents a unit, when you've got China, who's for every coal plant that we shutter, China opens 10, and when they have the cost advantage for the inputs, I mean, hydropower or electric power is required in all heavy industry. And when you're producing electricity at the margin for 70 cents and another jurisdiction has it at 6 cents, you can't compete with that. And this little thing of action of Murray Strong also dovetails with his very, very big. He was the author of a document called Agenda 21, which was produced under the auspices of the United Nations, and it was introduced to the world in 1992 in Rio. And the essence of Agenda 21 was basically that using the fig leaf of saving the environment, we were going to make electricity green. And the greening of electricity, isn't it interesting how the greening of the power grid in Ontario has served to deindustrialize this province? So, that's this deindustrialization thing, how it's applied in the real world and how it's done, hiding in plain view, and people don't even realize it because they've been sold a bill of goods on this notion that they're saving Mother Earth. Reducing our carbon footprint, and which the science in that, in my view, is nonsense. And but it served its purpose. It's helped to deindustrialize us. I mean, in America, you guys are shutting down coal-fired power plants as well, and you're not going to get your jobs back. You're not going to regrow your industrial base when you've got expensive power. So this has been a craftily engineered and implemented plan to deindustrialize the West. The next thing they want to do, supposedly under UN auspices, they want to disarm Americans. And I mean, if you look at the major genocides, Greg, of the last 120 or 150 years. They always disarm people before they went on their genocide tracks. I mean, Hitler disarmed people before he let loose on the population. Mao did the same thing. Stalin did the same thing. Castro did the same thing. All police states, all forms of totalitarianism always have a keen interest to disarm the population. And this is why I'm not really I don't like guns myself, but this is why I see the potential disarming of America as being a very, very, very bad thing and foretelling of some very, very ugly times to come.
Could the whole economic could this get out of control even for the masterminds, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, the globalists? Could this just get we've had big banks in Portugal get into trouble. Draghi, who's going to retire soon, I heard, Mario Draghi, the head of the ECB, says that, we got $1 trillion to throw at this problem. That's so much, it's so fixed that they need another $1 trillion pumped into it. You've got, big banks in Portugal, other banks, that are teetering. I had Egon von Greyers on, who said that basically all the big banks anyway, are insolvent just at varying degrees. Could this turn into a daisy chain of default, or are they at some point going to make it a daisy chain of default?
I suspect that the likelihood of that happening increases with time. Understand, Greg, the bank Santo Spirito in Portugal that just ran into trouble within the last couple of weeks. I'm going to suggest to you that the reason that they're in trouble is because they actually have accounting. I don't think the big American banks, I don't believe they have accounting. I don't believe they're held to actually produce accurate financial results. And I say that from the basis of the size of their derivatives books. Those books are dynamic, and when you have for instance, a $72 trillion derivatives book, the odds of that book, having a variation in its value at the end of any day, if you have very volatile interest rate complex, to think that you could have a 1% deviation in the value of that book, I think it could occur and probably does occur with regularity. And but if you're not subject to accounting, then you just don't report it. And I mean, there is legislation in the United States that says that the Treasury Secretary, it was the president or a designate of the president could give any publicly traded company a waiver to excuse them from reporting the true condition of their enterprise. So, everyone should remember that there's a law on the books in America that says, in the name of national security, companies can be excused from reporting their true financial condition. And, I can't only but think that these banks have been excused from doing real accounting. So, but anybody who would go contra them, anybody who would take the other side of their trades, anybody who would do something that's not deemed to be in the public or in the elite's good, they are held to accounting. They don't get the waiver. So this way you can eliminate your competition, and this way you can become the dominant player in the market. And to think that this isn't in play, I think you'd be extremely naive to think that this law that's on the books, that's been publicly talked about in the last 10 years, to think that it isn't in play is absolutely naivety.
Well, how long can they do this for? In the pre-interview, you were telling me about, it's like a guy spinning some plates, and he spins 1, and then he spins 2, and then he spins 4, and then he spins 8, and, how long can they do this? In terms of hundreds of trillions of dollars in these debt bets, derivatives back and forth between countries and institutions and whatever. How long can they do it?
Well, the globalists, in my view, don't have a happy house, in that there are parts of the world, namely Russia and China, just don't seem to want to play the game the way the globalists want everything to be run. And so there's friction there, and China, the weight of China, and especially when you look at the BRICS nations as a whole, their share of the global economy is growing. Like these guys actually have real growth in their economies, where America's reported growth and reported employment and reported inflation rates are all fiction. And, at some point, Greg, with the amount of dollars that have been created, at some point those dollars will come home. And ultimately, in the end, Greg, that will lead to the destruction of the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is on a trajectory to implode, and it will implode. I can't tell you the day it's going to implode, but the outcome is absolutely, in my view, guaranteed, that the U.S. dollar will achieve its true value, which is zero. And, everything's in place, and the procedures are being followed to make that happen right now. And that's why I'm a big proponent of owning physical precious metal. And I think that, if you don't own it, you're in trouble at some point. I believe I'm going to live to see the U.S. dollar worth nothing.
Ooh,
and I'm 54 years old. So I think that's coming in my lifetime. Absolutely.
Well, do you think that there's been a lot of machination, not a price manipulation? I'm sorry, but I'm just going to come out and say it's price manipulation. It's manipulated. Anybody who says it's not is living in a fantasy.
Listen, I had a discussion with a group of people that I share thought with on the internet through email. Yesterday, somebody was saying why with the plane being shot down and over in the Ukraine, we saw a very strong rally in the U.S. Treasury market, and people are saying, if the American dollar is going to be worth zero, why are we seeing these rallies in the U.S. government securities? And my answer to that is the ESF, the U.S. Treasury, has the ability to make the commercial banks captive buyers of any amount of U.S. government debt absolutely anytime they want. So that's why it rallied, because part of the illusion of the U.S. dollar is showing people that it performs well when there's crisis, and a lot of that is myth, because when people talk about there's a saying that whenever there's trouble in the world, there's a flight to quality. And what we've seen in the last 10 years, we've seen the price of gold attacked mercilessly and crushed and stymied anytime there would have been a natural run to gold. And instead we have these derivatives interventions by the U.S. Treasury that make the U.S. government debt look like the go-to thing. Well, I'll tell you what, U.S. Treasuries are debt, and a flight to debt is not a flight to quality, because debt is not quality, especially when you're talking about debt of an institution that, for all intent and purpose, is insolvent and can't pay their bills. So anyway, this is why physical precious metal will win the day, Greg, because physical precious metal has been around for 6,000 years, which is probably around 5,800 more years than the U.S. dollar has been around, and it's never gone to zero. And every fiat currency that's ever been created, Greg, has gone to zero.
Back to gold. Gold should have taken off. It did get a nice bump last week when all this thing happened with the airplane and Hamas, the Israeli-Hamas war. That's what I'm calling. And this, the shoot down of this Malaysian jet. But I thought it should be up $100 in a day. I mean, it should have been skyrocketing. I mean, look at all the junk going on in the world, and all the debt, and all the banks, and all the Draghi with another $1 trillion, and all the chaos and war and rumors of war and insolvency. The gold should be taken off like a rocket. What's up?
Greg, well, if we had free markets, Greg, gold would be doing that in spades. But it's not doing that, because we have effectively got a goon squad that comes in and clobbers the price of gold through these paper contracts where big players come in, right on the edge when news comes out that should be very gold positive. You'll have these players come into the marketplace and dump tons and tons and tons, untold tons worth of paper contracts on the market, and there's no physical gold to back those contracts up. So, and then we've got regulators that observe this going on, and they say nothing. But that's all part of the captured system. The globalists are in control. The globalists control the political apparatus. They control the financial apparatus. They control the media apparatus, Greg, which is why people are tuning into you more and more and more. That's why, Greg, you have a bigger audience than a lot of CNN shows. Because people intuitively know they're being lied to by the mainstream press. We have a mainstream press that does not report real news. They do no investigative reporting. They're a sham. But they're no more a sham than the CFTC is, who is supposed to regulate the commodities markets. And they allow this naked shorting of paper contracts to wag the tail of the underlying physical.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, as people become more and more aware of this, this is when people start demanding increasingly, as we've seen Russia and China do, their demand and appetite for physical precious metal is insatiable.
And you're helping get some of that metal to those players.
I try to assist where I can. So,
that's one of your functions, is to help big players get gold.
Yes,
in tons,
absolutely.
In tons, not in coins.
And they buy it tons at a time if they can get it, and they don't really want the paper contracts.
Oh, you
see, and in the end, Greg, because physical precious metal only comes out of the ground at a finite rate, and when you have insatiable demand for the physical, not the paper, you can see how ultimately the physical trumps the paper and discredits the paper for what it is, which is a rigging campaign.
Are you seeing a tightness in the gold and silver market? Are you seeing tightness in the precious metal markets?
Absolutely. There's been tightness in the gold market, in the physical gold market. There's been tightness even as the price was bashed from $1,900 an ounce down to $1,200 an ounce.
So you're saying right now, as we speak, the market is tight. You can't just go out and get whatever at will that you want.
I think you'd have trouble, to be honest with you, Greg. If you were a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund, I think you'd have a lot of trouble finding 10 tons of physical gold right now.
Wow.
And because big blocks of physical gold are not very easy to buy. You can buy 10 tons of paper contracts, promises of gold. You can buy those in a heartbeat. We see financial houses sell 10 tons of gold in 30 seconds on the COMEX exchange.
And they don't have it.
They don't have the gold.
And what
Absolutely not.
What about silver?
I would say the issue in silver is even more extreme than gold.
Wow, tighter than gold.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Where do you think the price is going to go?
And that's against the backdrop of them clobbering the price from $50 down to we were down to $18 at one point. We've rebounded a little bit, I think, up close to 21 right now. But I mean, anyway, I think silver is just a screaming buy here.
Well, with that kind of scenario, I mean, you're in the pits. I mean, not in the pits, but you're actually in the trenches. You're in buying and trying to acquire gold or silver and silver for clients in large amounts, and you're saying it's tight. What's your prediction for some kind of a price? The naked shorts are going to get wiped out, or the price is going to bolt up. Is there any time this year maybe that the price may go back up?
I suspect, Greg, that in the next 3 months we could see some extremely significant advances in the price of both gold and silver. That's my view, and I think there's this very, 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 very good chance that that's exactly what we're going to see.
All righty, you'd be a buyer here, is what you're saying. Don't wait for it to drop.
Absolutely. Well, I have a little saying, Greg. There's no such thing as a bad day to buy physical precious metal. And I'm quite happy, to be honest with you, Greg, I'm quite happy with silver that I bought at higher prices. Because,
You have it.
I do believe, I possess it and I have it stored away. And B, I think I'm going to live to see the day when wealth is measured in ounces. Not dollars.
Egon von Greyer's over at Matterhorn Asset Management over in Switzerland said after the interview segment, and said, I used to say that gold should be $10,000 an ounce in today's money, but in the future we're not going to have today's money. And I thought, wow, that's pretty profound. Yeah. I mean, he has vaults, biggest vault in Europe supposedly, and I don't have any reason to doubt him. And other vaults in other places in the world, but this is his deal. He says there's nothing else out there. Land, assets, factory, a train. I mean, physical assets. He says there's really nothing else out there.
Yeah. Well, for most of recorded history, real wealth was measured in ounces, and the dollar's only been around for so long. And I think to be honest with you, when gold and silver are true measures of real wealth again, that will be a reversion to a mean, Greg. And most people believe that things revert to a mean. That's it's a saying, and it's one of the ways of life. You have diversions from the mean, and then you have reversions to the mean. And wealth being measured in ounces will be a reversion to an historic mean. And I'm looking forward to seeing it happen.
Rob Kirby, Kirby Analytics, thank you for coming to us from Canada and taking your time. Appreciate it, Rob Kirby. Thanks for being on USAWatchdog.com.
My pleasure, Greg.